our first fruits, the best of our grains, offerings of our livestock. When we lost the temple and our ancestors were exiled, the leaders of that time needed to translate that ancient cultic system into a new world in which they didn't have a temple. They substituted prayer, they substituted blessings for the ancient system. And because of that, they looked to the things of their world as if they were holy vessels in a sanctuary, in a temple. And that includes anything that grew. And so the things that grow turn out to belong, in that understanding, to God, no less than the offerings in the temple. And so if we were going to benefit from them, we needed to honor them as if our ancestors were doing so in the same way in the temple, with praises to God. And not to do so was to not respect the holy nature of that which we were consuming. Our ancestors even went a step further, and this hurts my heart to read this in perhaps a challenging way. Our ancestors continued that if we derive a benefit from something in this world and we don't offer a blessing, it's as if we're a thief. It's as if we're stealing from God, as if we're stealing from all of Israel. I taught this once to one of my congregants, and she's like, I'm stealing from God every time I have breakfast? I'm stealing from God every time I smell a flower? I'm stealing from God every time? Oh my God. I don't want anyone here to hear anything punitive here. That's not my personal theology. But to me, it's inspiring that our ancestors so were committed to the idea that everything we see, everything we smell, everything we eat has within it a core of holiness, that they were willing to entertain the possibility that to take that and not dedicate it in some way, you might as well be a thief. Some of us, I'm seeing some hands and some heads. We're going like, yeah, that makes sense because God is the creator and God is the nurturer. And I'm seeing some people go like this, yeah, no way, that's not my theology. Yeah. Which one is Jewish? Answer, yes. If this is challenging to you, you can understand the blessings that we offer, not in terms of thieves and punitives, but as opportunities to appreciate and offer praises, because that's the first explanation. That's the first backstory. And for those of you who feel that you receive such blessing that you have to give back, and to not give back is to turn your back on that blessing, that's how I understand this thieving idea, then you can offer blessings like that. There are many Jewish ways to offer blessings. But as we move into Hamotzi, I wanted us to have that shared sense of what the backstory is. So with that, let's go. Let's talk about the mitzvah, and then we'll talk about some mystical ways to bring extra meaning to it. Everybody who has ever offered Hamotzi knows. You take the bread, you offer the blessing, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, Hamotzi lecha min haaretz. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of ha'olam, the world, time and space. Hamotzi lecha min haaretz, who brings forth bread from the earth. And then we eat. So how much? If you have a crumb, is that enough? So here's what the rabbi said to that. Same tractate of Talmud. They're going to figure out, how much is in and what counts as bread and what does it need to be made of. So those are the first things that our rabbis in ancient days were interested in, because for them there was so much at stake in this. They were trying to replicate what had happened in the temple now in their kitchens, now in their homes. And especially when we ourselves are at home, not going to temple, whatever your Judaism, whatever your spirituality is, it's happening right where you are. So the stakes are high for us too, no matter what choices we make. So with that in mind, let's unpack some of their choices. Here's what they said. They said that if a cooked dish contains pieces of bread the size of an olive, then you have to offer hamotzi. Why? Because they looked back to what they had done back in the past. There was a temple and there was a priest, and the priest stood and offered a meal offering, a blessing over some physical flour in Jerusalem. And he back then, the priest, would then take them to eat, who brings forth bread from the earth. And it was taught that he crumbled it into olive-sized pieces. The end. The answer is, if it's the size of an olive, if you take a piece of bread about yay big, tradition would say that we offer this blessing. If you have a crumb, don't worry about it. If you eat the whole loaf, boy howdy, you're going to want some peanut butter with that. Anything olive size or more. Their next question is, what counts as bread? I am not a chef. I am not a cook. In some respects, I am the wrong person to teach this. If I were to bake, it would taste like probably a fire in a bread factory. You just don't want to go there with me. But I know that there are bakers on this call. And so it's very earthy. Get that sense of kneading the dough, and you've got the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients. There's a lot going on. What counts as bread? They said any of the 5 species, wheat, barley, rye, spelt, or oats, that are crushed down, ground down, mixed with wet ingredients, primarily water, and you bake it. Whatever comes out, that counts as bread. So what might not count? Pasta might not count. Rice flour does not count. How about a cake? So in the traditional Jewish set, other blessings were aroused for those other situations, because we still offer a blessing, because whatever grew by a power that I can't make happen. I can't make something grow. So other blessings came for other forms of food, and some of these are known in more traditional sets. Borei minei mizonot, who creates various kinds of sustenance. Those are mainly for cakes, desserts. And for everything else, shehakol nihiyeh bidvaro, for all things were made by God's will. See that idea? Everything comes through God in some way, through holiness, through potentiality, through partnership in some way. We'll come back to that partnership idea. And so the rabbis, being really good lawyers, they're like, all right, Rabbi, riddle me dish. Let's say that you chew wheat, but it hasn't been ground down. Do you say motzi? So could you imagine going into a field and picking up a wheat and just chewing it? Well, they actually thought about these things. And their answer was, nope, that's not bread. You would offer the blessing as if it's just anything else coming out of the ground. Borei pri ha'adama. Okay, but if you ground the wheat and you baked it and cooked it into bread, then okay, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Now it's bread. But if you boiled it, or if the slices are no longer recognizable as bread, now it's going to be borei minei mizonot. They actually thought about this as if there were a right blessing and a wrong blessing to give. Spiritually, I'm not sure there is. There's a beautiful story that Rabbi Brad Hirschfeld tells about his own growing up days. He decided to become a more traditional observant Jew as a child, and his Chicago family sent him to an Orthodox school. Now, his family had come from Chicago, and they had a tradition. This was very Jewish tradition, and many of you have experienced this also. On Sunday, you go out for Chinese. And what did they have? They had shrimp. And so little Brad raises his hand in school. His teacher is an Orthodox rabbi. And Brad says, I have a question. And the rabbi says, yes, Bradley, that's your question. And Bradley says, what's the blessing over shrimp? And immediately, of course, he's sent to the principal's office. This is an Orthodox school. Shrimp is not kosher. And so the principal says, Bradley, what kind of question you asking? Well, I want to know. Who gives you shrimp? Well, my parents do. And do they say a blessing over the shrimp? And he says, yes. Now, the rabbi with the beard and the whole thing, they're just stroking the beard, and leans into Bradley and says, and what blessing does your parents say over shrimp? And Bradley says, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. It's the blessing they knew. And to his great good credit, the principal says, the blessing you learned from your parents is as if you learned it from Sinai. Go back to class. The intention that we offer, that we would offer a blessing over food at all, even if halachically, traditionally in Jewish law, it's not this one, it should be that one. The fact that we offer a blessing at all is so potent, is so powerful, such an opportunity that in a sense, the halachic strictures fall away. There are, quote, correct answers. But especially for us, which one we offer and is less important to me as a spiritual seeker than the fact that we would arouse our hearts and our minds to have that moment of awareness to offer a blessing at all. So if the first part of this presentation left you with, which blessing do I use? It's worth learning if you're interested, but to me, that's not the story. The story for me is not the mitzvah on this one, but the mysticism, the real front of what we're doing. I've put here 4 blessings. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, who brings forth bread from the earth. Blessing over wine, borei pri hagafen. The blessing over tree fruits, borei pri ha'etz. Blessing over veggies, borei pri ha'adama, the fruit of the soil. Hamotzi stands out. All of the other blessings begin with borei, who creates or creator. Creator, the fruit of the vine, borei pri ha'etz, borei pri hagafen, borei pri ha'adama. Creator, creator, creates. The bread blessing, hamotzi, doesn't start like that. We might have an instinct about why. I'm going to stop the share for a second so I can see some faces. Does anyone maybe have an instinct about why? Why would the blessing over bread not begin with borei, creator? Julie, I'm going to invite you to call on someone because there are a bunch of hands.
Right. Let's see. For some reason, I'm not seeing I know that I saw that there were hands raised, but Zvi?
Because unlike other items, like where they're essentially coming from the tree, you actually have to make bread. You actually have to combine. There is there's a requirement. You actually have to be involved in it. I mean, you don't cause the trees to create fruit.
Right. So unless you have a Wonder Bread tree in your front yard, odds are pretty good that bread is coming through human agency. Which then begs a different question. Then why are we blessing God for saying hamotzi lechem, who brings forth bread from the earth? Because God isn't doing it. We are. Well, not me. You don't want my bread. So why are we blessing God? Why are we attributing the baking to God? Let me call.
Yeah, I see the hands now.
Go for it.
Jennifer Phillips. Oh, Jennifer, I think something's wrong with your sound. We're going to come back to you in a second. Ali Shapiro.
You need to unmute. Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, guys. Hi, everybody. Good Shabbos. We're
Shabbat
still
shalom.
alive. We're alive. We've made another week. Baruch Hashem. So I am thinking, though I really don't know, that possibly we are saying this prayer because the gift of life has been given to us by God. And so we are then offering our thanks to God for the talent or for the opportunity to put bread on the table for our family.
Okay, so there's a partnership going on here. There is a potentiality that we are given the opportunity to do this or the ability to do this. Beautiful. Maybe one or two other ideas.
Let's go back to Jennifer Phillips.
Oh, thank you. Well, it seems that there might be a connection in the idea of partnership with the fact that in Bereshit, Hashem brings Adam out of the earth, and then Adam is having the task of toiling for bread as Adam's kind of work. So I would think that there would be a type of learning, almost a tikkun, or maybe even a type of learning how to create like Hashem does from the task that we have as toiling for our bread.
Gorgeous, Jennifer.
Yeah,
gorgeous. And we're going to come back to Eden. We're going to come back to Gan Eden at the end of this. So let's bring that comment back.
Do we have time for another comment
Please,
or question?
one more, yeah.
Okay, Daniel Goldberg.
Hi. So I think what we're looking at here is an admiration of everything in creation that goes into making the bread. I think it's somewhere else in Brachot that one of the rabbis says to, when you buy a loaf of bread, that you should think that, everything that was created here, every person involved in this process, has done all of this thing just for me to have a meal.
Yeah.
That there's an intense amount of gratitude to the whole world and obviously the creator of the world for that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I think there's a lot of emet, there's a lot of truth in a lot of these. And there's also emet for the possibility that there's something even more going on. Not all of us believe in a creator God who creates things. So there's got to be something more going on here. Let's see what happens as we thread that question through what comes next. So it turns out that the phrase hamotzi is a very odd word. We just came through Passover. What happens right before we sing Dai Dayenu, Dai Dayenu? We say Ilu Ilu Hotzianu Mi Mitzrayim Hotzianu Dayenu. Hotzianu. It's, we got the people dancing. It sounds a lot like hamotzi, doesn't it? The motzi hotzi. There's something happening here. So when the rabbis were debating what the blessing should be in their understanding, they actually didn't come to it so easy. They said it should be who brings forth hamotzi, but someone else said who brought forth bread from the earth. I mean, obviously it's done. I'm holding it in my hand. It's got a shmir of cream cheese on it. It's there. What do you mean, who brings forth bread from the earth? It's brought. And the rabbis debated this. And they said, hang on, motzi really means brought, not brings. God brought them forth, motzi'am, from Egypt, in the book of Numbers, chapter 23. But Nehemiah, Rabbi Nehemiah in Talmud says, ha-motzi means brings, present tense. One of the 4 promises of redemption in Exodus. Why is all this happening? So that you will know that it is I, God, who ha-motzi etchem, who brings you out from under the burdens of Egypt. That's one of the reasons we have 4 cups. There are 4 promises. This is one of them. So is it brought or is it brings? And sometimes Talmud lets it fly all over the place. But for this, it was really important that they come to a conclusion. So important is bread, that they came to a conclusion. Bread is a staff of life, we hear. Bread is one of the things that was placed in the Mishkan. So this is not unimportant. And so they set the halacha. They said, Behilchata hamotzi lechem min haaretz. The halacha is that one says, who brings. For we uphold the rabbinic view also that it also means brought. What? You mean hamotzi is both brings and brought? It's both now and then? It's continuing and it's past? Talmud's answer to that sort of Buddhist koan in the head is yes. That every time we offer hamotzi, we are in a time transport. We are in a moment in time and part of a continuity of time. That the bread was created, but as we say in Jewish liturgy, every moment God is recreating creation, and we are a partner in that recreation. A physicist will tell you that my iPhone, which feels very formed and fixed in my hand, is actually coming into being in every moment. And that this power of creation, that bread reflects as a microcosm of the world, also comes into being every second. So the bread that we hold in our hands and we say, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, we are encoding spiritually and mystically that creation is ongoing, that we are partners in that co-creation, except me and my baking, that we are in a time portal, and that we are connecting this blessing also with our exodus from Egypt. Our very identity as people whose ancestors were liberated so that they would know that it is the ultimate source of love and power in the universe who brings us out from under the burdens. Every single time we offer hamotzi is an opportunity to calibrate, to reconnect with that, to take that moment of gratitude now and let that gratitude flow through that time portal. Hamotzi is now. Hamotzi is also every moment that led to now. It is an ongoing. Some will, I do this sometimes, offer that blessing and say, and through this bread flowed the folks who stacked it, the folks who transported it, the folks who baked it, the folks who work in the factory, the folks who transported the raw ingredients, the folks who grew those raw ingredients, the folks who educated those people to go out into the fields, are in the sand and the soil and the water. All of society is in that bread. It's an incredible thing. All of society is in that bread, which means the bracha becomes a consciousness shifter. If we could trace back the flow of everything that flows into that piece of bread, and that is what God is bringing forth, and that we are holy partners with that bringing forth. We commit ourselves to be holy partners with that bringing forth. What an extraordinary opportunity that becomes. It isn't just thanks God for the bread. So I commend to you that kavanah, that intention. Now let's go back to Eden. There was a comment earlier that this is a tikkun, a holy repair for something that happened in Eden. Yeah. Genesis 2. The first stanza here is from Genesis 2. So once upon a time, there was just Ha'adam, the human. And we know the story. Of every tree in the garden you may eat, but of that tree over there, you don't go there. Don't go there. And we know what happened next. Skip ahead to the next chapter. And so to the man afterwards, Torah records God as saying, as you ate of the tree that I commanded you, you must not eat of it. For you the ground is cursed. In sorrow you will eat of it, and all the days of your life. It will sprout for you thorns and thistles. You will eat the herb of the field. By your brow's sweat, you'll eat bread until you are returned to the ground. And we were exiled from the land that the Garden of Eden stood on. Whatever we make of that creation story, it says something pretty interesting. You can eat from the trees in the beginning, but then afterwards we're going to have bread, and we're going to have to do it ourselves. Midrash comes along and says, well, if there was bread after, there had to be bread before, which meant, Rabbi Zera said in Breshit Rabbah, there's got to be bread trees in Eden. That Wonder Bread tree that we joked about 15 minutes ago, it existed. It was in Eden. There was a bread tree in Eden. So cool. What does that have to do with us now? The comment that Hamotzi lechem min haaretz might be a tikkun, a holy repair, now takes on profound resonance. Because if it is true that we are attributing to divinity, to the sacred, something about this bread, that would seem to be a violation of Genesis 3, wouldn't it? By your brow's sweat, you will eat bread until you are returned to the ground. By your brow's sweat. And now we're saying, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, Baruch atah Adonai. Is it possible that when we feed each other, when we bake bread, not when I bake bread, when other people bake bread, when we feed each other, we are making a tikkun, a repair for a little bit of what was broken. When we offer a blessing and we connect with our source, when we connect with what we aspire to in Jewish life, our pride, our love, our care, whatever we imagine God to be, when we invoke that over a piece of bread, might we be making a bit of repair for what happened in Eden? Might we be repairing the world just a little bit? Might we inspire ourselves and each other to be aware of all that flow that came forward from the farmers and the fields and the environment and all of that? The sacred economy that someday will treat everybody fairly in the economy of bread. And arouse us to offer what we can, not just our words, but also our actions, to continue that path of holy repair. That might be what the Zohar meant when it offered this. When a person sits at one's table to eat, one makes the blessing for bread, hamotzi, and we've unpacked why. So why is the reason we say hamotzi, which Zohar understands to be not just as a verb, but also a noun, the one who brings forth bread? and not just motzi, the verb, who brought forth bread. Here is one of Zohar's answers, that the letter He in ha-motzi encodes a great deal of meaning. It represents the hiddenness of all things that come from the upper concealed world of the highest supernal wisdom. For people that come in a traditional Jewish context, instead of writing the name for God, they might write the letter He with a little chipchik. We are actually encoding divinity. And that He in Jewish mysticism is a womb, W-O-M-B, a womb, in which all things come. So what is translated from the supernal realm translates down. And every time we say ha-motzi, we can intend to hasten that flow. This is a mystical way of bringing that flow through us, and like wind moving a pinwheel, inspiring us to actually go out there and make that true. That's individual. One last offer, and then we'll open to questions. Have any of you ever offered hamotzi in a group context or a synagogue context? I'm seeing some hands. Good. In some places, including my own synagogue, someone touches someone. Remember when we used to go places and touch people? Someone touches someone who touches someone who touches someone who touches the challah, and someone takes the hands and puts them on the challah. Someday, maybe we'll get back to that. If you're looking at that assemblage of people touching people and reaching in and touching the challah together, if you're looking at that from upstairs, could you imagine what that looks like? All the people sort of branched, they're branched, and then fewer people, and then there's someone holding the challah. If you could look at that from above, that would be a tree. In a sense, our connections using bread as an anchor replicate the tree of life. And it was that kind of idea that inspired the holy Ari, Isaac Luria, who lived in the 16th century. He wrote this: the secret, you take your 10 fingers and you place all 10 fingers on the bread when reciting the 10 words of the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. And by that intention, we reconnect to all the other holy tens. There were 10 utterances that created. If you count the number of times in Genesis where the creation story begins, let there be, it's 10. How many commandments? 10. How many spiritual dimensions in the Sfirot, for those of us who have that background, and if not, you can look it up, the 10 holy energy centers. Tens. That's how creation happens. And we bring forth that universe in the constancy of creation. The bread becomes a symbol, becomes a portal in time, it becomes a portal in space, it becomes a portal for us to re-energize the creation. Now, for some of us, this is word salad, duck speak. What are you talking about? Talmud said, offer a blessing because it belonged to God. And for those of us for whom God is not a concept that engages us, it's an opportunity for mindfulness, for gratitude. So what does all of that have to do with, we've come so far in a half hour to Isaac Luria? My own personal answer, friends, I can only offer you my personal answer, is that whatever re-engages us to commit to the continuing repair of the world, I'm for that. We offered that idea with the mezuzah last week to be reminded to love, that the core of our tradition is to love in ways that manifest in the world. Same too with bread. It's a different mitzvah that encodes a lot of different textual tradition, but it's another opportunity for us to manifest our commitment to partner with the sacred, and by that means to help repair this broken world. So the next time you have a piece of bread, first count yourself lucky that I didn't bake it, and then offer your own blessing, whether it's hamotzi lechem min haaretz, or any blessing that will commit you to a mindful way of eating that brings the flow of where it came from and propels you forward in repair of the world. Thank you for learning with me today. I'll stay on for some questions, some comments. Julie, can you?
Thank you, Rabbi Markus. We have a question from Tally Ann, so I'll unmute you, Tally Ann, and there are also some questions in the chat box that we can get to.
Oh, yeah. Hello, yes. Actually, when you continued on talking about the connection between Adam, that's what I was thinking, but I was also, as he was speaking, thinking of the words when Moses asked Hashem for his name, and he said, Ayeh Asher Ayeh. And I think that concept of the continuation of the past, the present, the future, all at once when you're saying the motzi, that's encompassing the all of God, and it's the speaking into the power of speech. It's that when we say a motzi, it's as if we are also connecting to the first spoken, let there be light.
Beautiful. I'm down with that. Where Yud He Vav He is an anagram for is, was, will be. Where when Moses says to God on Sinai, God, I want to see you. And God says essentially, sorry, kid, you can't. If you see me, you can't be a limited person anymore and see me, but I'll put you in the cleft of the rock and my qualities will come. My ancestors, my people in Egypt, they're going to say, who sent you? Who sent me? What should I tell them? What's your name? And they're going to say, woof. They're going to say, what? Eheye asher eheye. I will be what I will be. We've all seen the Cecil B. DeMille movie, I am that I am. Terrible mistranslation. It's an ever-becomingness. So our very words for divinity are part of the flow of time, transcending time, flowing through us. Beautiful, Talian. Thank you for sharing that. Julie, you are muted, friend. Julie, you are muted. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry. I muted myself because my dog was barking in the background.
Your dog!
So I was saying we have a couple of questions. First, we'll hear from Deborah Schweigart and then from Varda. And we also have a question in the chat box. Do you still fulfill the mitzvah if you're not doing motzi, if you're not eating bread?
So let me take that one first. If you're not eating bread, there are other ways to offer a blessing, shehakol nihiyeh bidvaro, that where all things are made by God's will, or borei minei mizonot is another traditional blessing that's in the materials. I've got a couple of private questions, like what do we offer over strawberries? In one respect, there's a halachic answer for each of them. And another one is, I almost don't care what blessing you offer, in the same spirit as Brad Hirschfeld's comment that he could offer hamotzi lechem min haaretz over shrimp. Whatever we offer, English may be more impactful for some of us. If we have a Hebrew and a halachic background, there are answers to these questions. And I'm happy to stay on and work through borei minei mizonot, hamotzi lechem, shehakol nihiyeh. There are many, many, many blessings, and there are whole pages of Talmud written about them. But yes, offer something. Offer something from your heart. please, Julie, the oral questions.
Okay, Deborah.
Okay, so Rabbi, I was wondering, when we were talking about the Hamotzi and the Jews leaving Egypt, I was wondering if the rabbis were thinking, well, if we hadn't been brought out of Egypt by God, we wouldn't even have this bread.
Oh, I love that.
Is that part of their thinking?
I can't tell you exactly what they were thinking precisely because my memory of what I was doing a few thousand years ago is I'm kidding. I don't know for sure, Deborah. I can say that your idea is actually quite similar to something that Lord Rabbi Sachs in the United Kingdom offered just a short time ago. What people would remember what they were eating 3,500 years ago? What people would so remember that moment that they actually remembered the kind of bread, in that case matzah? That there's something about the interplay between freedom and bread that is so core to who we are and fuels us to this day. So Deborah, I think you're onto something. Thank you for sharing that.
Varda?
Hi, thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
So I've been watching my sister put 10 fingers on the challah for 40 years, and I never knew that there was a reason behind it. I just thought it was her thing. I just never knew. So how do you think moving forward things are going to be, since nobody wants to eat challah now that we've all touched, that we put 10 fingers on? How do you think it's going to be?
That's a great question. In one respect, I want to say that what I personally think is far less important than what all of us choose to do. We make the minhag, we make the tradition. The days in which you can read it in Talmud and, Rabbi David said, and therefore. So I want to encourage all of us to immerse in the possibilities of this moment. And instead of recoiling from them, actually make opportunity. Maybe the opportunity now is going to be that everybody has a little challah. Maybe instead of having one big challah where one person gets to do the thing, maybe everyone's going to have a little challah. And for health and safety reasons, we now have a spiritual opportunity for everybody to pick up that piece of bread. Everybody have that moment of intention. Everybody put their 10 fingers on. Maybe that's going to be the future. I don't know. But we're going to find out, aren't we? Thank you for your question.
More questions?
I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, so Shayna was asking about, Shayna, do you want to ask your question verbally, or would you like me to?
I'd be happy to. Thank you so much. This has meant a lot to me. Thank you, Rabbi. So interesting, and it means a lot to me to know this because I've been wanting to know it for many years, the mystical meaning behind the motzi. So this means so much. But what I wonder now, is there some mystical meaning behind the piece that we tear off before we bake it?
You bet there is. Great question. So what Shayna is asking about is the tradition that if one bakes bread, especially a challah, one takes a little bit and sets it aside. In fact, if you have matzah still in your house, and I know some of you do, you might go to the box and look carefully. You may see the phrase challah is taken. What does it mean that challah is taken? And what does challah have to do with matzah? Matzah is not challah. The idea is that we take a little bit, and it's a little bit like tithing for God. We take a little bit away as the first thing we do. This doesn't belong to us. It actually belongs to the sacred. And we do that ritually. And so when we have a box of matzah, someone for whom that tradition is important is going to want to know that that mitzvah, that ritual tradition was fulfilled in the making of the matzah. So they'll say for this box of matzah, yes, challah was taken. And the challah is not the little piece of the matzah, but the making of the dough. So thank you very much for your question. That's how I understand the flow of that tradition.
We have a lot of people thanking you for this class, Rabbi Markus. So
I'm delighted.
To, pass that along. And if there was someone who still has a question, you want to find the raise hand button or go like this. And Ross.
Hello.
Hi, Ross.
Found this like very inspiring. A couple of things. One question was, what about odd items? For example, what do you say for protein bars or protein drinks or vitamins or medications? I've been basically using Shehakol Nia Bivoro for those.
Yep, for the most part, that's what I would do also, Ross. For medication, if one wants to offer a particular blessing, some will say Shehakol. I offer Borei Refuot, creator of healing.
Oh, how interesting. The other thing is, this was very enlightening for me, is a comment that you made about Hashem basically creating and recreating our universe at every moment. And I'm a scientist by trade, so to speak. And if you kind of think about it from the physics of the universe, everything is nothing but atoms and subatomic particles. They're not static. They're in constant motion and changing interactions at every moment from beginning of creation for all time. So Hashem is really recreating creation at every moment. And that was such an eye-opener for me when you said that. And I really thank you, because it really, even just sitting here looking around me, changes my whole perspective on what Hashem has provided for us and continues to provide for us. So I want to thank you.
Thank you. It really is true. In our liturgy, we say in the morning, for those of us that have a traditional prayer practice, HaMechadesh betuvo b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh b'reshit. HaMechadesh, the one who renews, betuvo, in goodness, in one's goodness, in God's goodness. B'chol yom, every day, tamid, always, ma'aseh, the making of breshit, creation. That happens right before the Shema. As part of our morning practice, we reaffirm that creation is being recreated always. Which means that if you got up on the other side of the bed this morning and were having a lousy day, and a lot of people in this country and on this planet are having lousy days these days, there is the constancy of hope. There is the constancy of continuing flow. So thank you for uplifting that on the science side, Ross. I appreciate it.